Welcome and Jalasi, everyone, to Better Together. I'm Tony Roberts. I'm the director of the Purdue Crawford Teaching Center, and I teach in the sociology department at Mount Allison. And today we're talking with 3M fellows and mentors and discussing many things related to sort of 3M. First, though, I wanted to say that we here are located in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq people, the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. This territory is covered by the treaties of peace and friendship, which Mi'kmaq, Wolastoqiyik, and Passamaquoddy people first signed with the British Crown in 1725. The treaties did not deal with the surrender of lands and resources, but in fact recognized Mi'kmaq and Wolastoqiyik title and established the rules for what was going to be an ongoing relationship between nations. Mi'kma'ki includes all of Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, parts of New Brunswick, the Gaspé region of Quebec, part of Maine, and southwestern Newfoundland. We encourage everyone to learn, to reflect, and take action so we can go beyond land acknowledgements. Well, Alan, thank you. So we have with us today some wonderful, lovely people. We have Doctors Jessica Riddell, Erin Austen, Heather Lawford, and Angie Kolen. I will introduce each of them, and then we'll hand it over to them. Erin Austen is a tireless advocate for equitable, accessible, and inclusive pedagogy. A professor and also chair of psychology at StFX, Erin's research interest focuses on positive health behavior change and health promotion. Erin teaches courses in health promotion and sensation and perception, and also established the Perception Lab that includes various students in their research. Erin Austen also approaches teaching with compassion and kindness to create the conditions all participants need to flourish. Erin recognizes the known and the unknown challenges students face and designs her classes accordingly. Erin willingly shares the resources she creates with her colleagues at StFX and beyond. In her classes, also, Erin legitimizes, empowers, and celebrates the perspectives and approaches of other cultures within psychology and helps students see real-world relevance of what they are learning through course projects. Erin is one of the most thoughtful, warm, and reflective people I know. Jessica Riddell is professor of early modern literature in the English department at Bishop's University. Jessica holds the Stephen A. Jaroslawski Chair of Undergraduate Teaching Excellence. In this capacity, Jessica focuses on system change in higher education that fosters human flourishing. In her research, teaching, leadership, and administration, she participates in a wide range of conversations at the national and international levels about how universities fulfill the social contract to a broader society. Hope Circuits is Jessica's latest book and has spawned the Hope Circuits Institute. In all of these endeavors, she is dedicated to making the Academy more equitable, diverse, and inclusive, creating spaces for emerging scholars and amplifying student voices, decolonizing our institutions, advocating for teaching and learning as scholarly endeavors, and arguing for the relevance of the humanities. Jessica is one of the most generous and dynamic change makers I know. Heather Lawford is professor of psychology at Bishop's University. Heather has worked for over 10 years with the Students' Commission of Canada, a nonprofit dedicated to amplifying youth voice and supporting their legacy work. Heather currently holds a Canada Research Chair in Youth Development, where her research examines the way in which youth are able to reach their full potential and make meaningful contributions to community. Heather has been awarded over $8 million in research funding from diverse granting agencies, much of that funding going towards paying students and youth for their work. Has a new book with Jessica Riddell forthcoming, The Unlocking Superhero Powers, Metaphors, and Mentorship in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it helps readers unlock the qualities of generativity as superhero powers to make the world more equitable and just. Heather is one of the most energetic, humble, and positive people I know. Angie Kolen teaches human kinetics at StFX. The main focus of Angie's current research relates to the physical activity and physical literacy in children. Other research interests relate to the effective teaching of university students, primarily related to service learning. Angie teaches courses such as personal health and wellness using an ebook that she wrote and is currently working on a second edition, child growth and development, and also health education. Those are the other courses that Angie teaches. Angie's courses include opportunities for service learning, and in particular, the chance to work with her in Fit for Life and Fit for Tots. Fit for Life is an inclusive after-school program for elementary school children where low-organized games are played, and Fit for Tots is an exploratory movement program for children under the age of 5. Angie is one of those tireless, dynamic, and engaged people I know. Without exaggeration, these are some of the most amazing, bright, and inspiring people I know. It is a privilege and pleasure to know them, to work with them, and to introduce them to you today. Hope that wasn't too long, everyone. So I will now pass it over to these wonderful, wonderful people.
Thanks, Tony. That was beautiful. For all of us, that was absolutely amazing. And Tony, you actually covered a lot of our introductions, but still, I think the group here needs to learn a little bit about what really gets at the heart of each of us. So we're going to take turns, sharing why we get up in the morning or what gives us hope or what are we really passionate about. So I'm going to start us off with Jessica.
Thanks, Angie, and thanks everybody for coming and joining in these conversations. It's such a treat to be in a room with luminous souls who are hopeful and hopeful even in the face of or because of the uncertainty and disruption that we face both in our communities and sort of in the geopolitical instability that we're experiencing right now. It's a lot, and it's a lot on people's bandwidth. So it's such a treat to be here and to be in conversation. I am in Halifax right now. I am on the unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, but I was spent the first part of my travels, my adventure in Washington, D.C. So I flew in from D.C. yesterday. I spent 3 days in the American capital, sitting around a table with 30 luminaries from U.S. post-secondary, mostly university presidents from large universities to small community colleges for the AAC&U, which is the American Association of Colleges and Universities. I am the only board member who's Canadian, and it often feels not like I'm in a different country, but I'm in a different planet. And yet some of the same things that are keeping us up at night and getting us out of bed in the morning are around centering human and human spirit. And what was really hopeful for me was in conversation, and their sector is full of uncertainty and despair. Their universities are closing all of the time. There's government overreach and interference. There is the politicization of higher education. There's the decline in the humanities. There is, as you know, a US election less than 30 days out. But where I found hope was that in this board and around the table, we govern with joy. We centered joy. So our board chair started by reciting a poem from Langston Hughes. And centering the kind of humanity of all of us showing up as whole, imperfect, messy humans in the hard hope work ahead. We didn't start with business arising or a business agenda. We started by breaking out into groups and talking about what we loved. And I think that is absolutely powerful. It is a big board with lots of serious questions that center pleasure and joy and delight in the work. And that gives me hope. This is also a group right now today that animates and centers the joy and pleasure. And we must, as Adrienne Marie Brown said, who's an emergent strategist, pleasure activism is the only way forward. This is hard work. If we are not belly laughing and delighting in the joy of each other and centering the power of the human spirit, we're not going to get anywhere. So that is what gives me hope. And you know what? I talk to a lot of folks and they think that maybe a Harris presidency is a reality. And she starts with laughter and joy and dancing and a deep appreciation of the sovereignty and agency of each human in this world. And I think that's really powerful. So can I pass the baton over to Heather to ask, Heather, what gives you hope?
Thanks, Jessica. Hi, everyone. Thanks, Tony, for that incredible introduction. That must have taken some work to put that together, so I really appreciate that. I am currently on Abenaki territory in the Wabanaki Confederacy, sometimes known as Sherbrooke, Quebec. And I cannot believe that I'm sitting here with these people. I cannot believe that I'm on this Zoom call. Jessica will not tell you, but it is true that she had nominated me years and years ago, and I sort of refused her idea that maybe I could pursue it. So persistent she is. And I am a fan of academia. I was a mediocre student, to say the least, and was really aiming to just be able to stay in a university and hang out with amazing minds and listen to them produce knowledge and listen to them very quietly change the world in incredible ways and help us grow in the way that we think, and how we treat each other. So that I get to work in a university is just beyond what I ever thought was possible. I am incredibly privileged. And one of my favorite things about my job is that I get to choose who my collaborators are. I think as faculty, this is a huge privilege of getting to just call someone up and say, so I read your work and I'd like to sit in a room with you and talk. And is there something we could do together to make it bigger? And when I moved into a faculty position, I really understood the power of including students in those conversations and how they help me change and grow, and the absolute privilege it is to watch them on their journey of finding what's going to, where they want to put their time and passion and work. So yeah, I mean, I'm going to talk about youth and generativity. It's going to come up, but I'm trying to hold off for 2 minutes before I go there. So I will pass it to Erin.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Heather. And thanks, Tony, for the introduction. And welcome to everybody who's here. Maybe I'll just say that one thing that gives me hope is looking around the students that I'm meeting and talking to. They're very involved. They care deeply about things on campus, and I think sometimes students get bad reputations because all we hear about is the things that they didn't do right, and I'm thinking of around homecoming. Let's say there'll be a lot of publicity around homecoming. And then, but I'm seeing all the things that they're doing and how engaged they are and how involved they are and what a difference that they make to our community through volunteering, and all the things that they're doing on campus. So I think that gives me hope that they're coming up and doing things and very active. So I'll turn it to Angie.
Thanks. I offered or suggested I should be last because I thought it'd be easier, but it's actually a lot harder. Now, what am I going to say? Especially because Erin, I was going to talk about the students too. I'm going to be very quick and somewhat flippant because the other question we had challenged one another with was, what do we love? And right now, and I am sure for the rest of my days, what is driving me forward is the fact that I have 4 grandchildren, and I'm able to spend time with these 7, 3, 3, and 1-year-olds, and I see I am experiencing what I didn't really think was real when you were a parent. When somebody said, just wait till you're a grandparent because then you can really love them, and you just give all the hard work is done. And I wouldn't say all the hard work has been done, but I'm really appreciating the second opportunity, which, okay, if I also just give a little link to, let's go back to the teaching and learning. Every year we start again. We start a new term. Actually, we do that maybe more than once a year. And every time it's an opportunity to start again, to really appreciate who is in the room and see the opportunities that are there. So that hope in each new class, that joy that it brings me in starting all over, is part of that enthusiasm and love and sharing of sunshine and smiles as much as I can wherever I go. And then I'm going to turn it back to Jessica.
Thank you, Angie. And for anyone who has received an email from Angie, she ends with sunshine and smiles, and it is the delight it is centering joy, and it is centering the power of the human spirit. And it is a tiny gesture, but it is a powerful one, and it has a knock-on effect to everybody in your radius. So thank you for that. Bearer of light. And so the next question we have we'll start with Heather and then go to Erin, is this notion of origin stories. And Heather and I have talked a lot about origin stories because we co-taught and now are writing a book on superheroes. And one of the things that we are really struck by is that every superhero has an origin story, has a moment of transformation or unlocking, whether they received their power or they had a kind of awakening to their purpose. And origin stories give us an opportunity to go back to a moment. And, when you ask somebody their origin story, where they start and what kind of story they tell can change from day to day or from audience to audience. But it's a really important way of thinking about what drives you, what your purpose is, and what you can sort of center in terms of your values and your work. So, and I encourage you all to think about, as we hear the sharing of origin stories, what your own is and how you would tell it, and how that story is crafted and shapes the decisions and the values-based leadership that you engage in your own contexts. So Heather, would you like to talk about how did you get here? And you can interpret that as loosely as you wish.
Yeah, I was afraid to tell this story, but story is what connects us, right? Jessica, we often talk about how I use narrative in my work to have a better understanding of generativity and identity. And you have really unleashed the power of story for students and for readers of your work. And all the stories that Shakespeare tells, especially as a way for us to understand where we are and where we want to go and what we want to do. So there's a lot of origin stories, but the one I'll tell is about generativity. Sorry, guys. Where I started in a master's program with Michael Pratt at Laurier. And I started with him because he was doing attachment theory work. And that was my first love in psychology, is attachment theory, a theory of relationships. And he had given me 3 different types of reading and said, read these things, and then you can pick which part of my program you want to invest in. And I said, okay, but I'm here for attachment theory, so I'll do it because you told me, but that's what I'm going to do. And I was assigned the first chapter of a book edited by Dan McAdams and Edison Albin, Generativity in Adulthood. And I read the first chapter, and then I read 4 more chapters, and then I went and looked up more work that Dan McAdams had done and read some of that. And then I came and sat down, and he said, okay, so what are we going to do? And I said, I have no idea what we're going to do, but I want to keep reading this. This is what I want to do. And that started the journey of looking at generativity from a developmental lens and thinking about, what does it look like for young people? Is it possible that young people have motivation to contribute to the next generation, to leave a legacy? And that permeates everything I do as a researcher, as an educator, as a mentor, as a parent, as a friend, as a colleague, is thinking about, what do I want to leave behind here? What do I want to exist from this moment, even after I'm gone? So it was a pretty impactful moment. And I'm proud to say that along with a phenomenal researcher in Barcelona, Feliciano Vilar, who looks at generativity in aging populations, we've published the first ever developmental perspectives on generativity, and it just came out. So yeah, that's my origin story. It's got a nice little loop close to it.
I love
these days.
Yeah, thank you. And I think you center this work around generativity and available to all of us, not just in aging populations, but to youth and to each one of us, that we can adopt a generativity mindset and build legacy. And that feels like in Angie's conversation and Erin's conversation and yours, that is the sort of driving purpose of the work we're doing in higher education too. So thank you for that and for giving us that frame, giving us that theoretical lens, but also telling your story of how did you get here. Erin, I wonder if you might talk about your origin story and really loosely interpret it in whatever way that bubbles up in your storytelling.
Sure, thanks. Actually, I'm just thinking about it while we're sitting here. And Heather, I'm going to talk about something that you mentioned. Heather and I were on a call last week, and Heather made a comment about like tapping students and saying, what you're doing looks like leadership to me, right? You're doing a great job. Let's keep this going. How do we move this forward more? And I really liked that. And I think that's actually maybe what where I came, like my origin story is that as somebody who I didn't, maybe shy is overused, but I was quite shy and quiet and didn't have a lot of confidence. And so it really took people tapping me on the shoulder and saying, hey, you did a good job of this. You should think about grad school. You should think about this. And I don't know that I would have considered it for myself. I didn't know what I was going to do. So coming back to StFX and being in an academic position, I think when we think about educational leadership, we might have these limited views of what that looks like. And Jessica, I've been around you quite a bit, and you're an amazing model of educational leadership. But I think there's also other we can't all be Jessica Riddells, but I think there's different ways to look at educational leadership and understand educational leadership. And I think sometimes we fall into things and then we build that little skill set that's needed at the time to do that thing that we're being asked to do. So maybe it's host a talk, maybe it's put together a conference, and then building that skill set, we move on and do the next thing. And we keep taking these challenges and building skill as we go. I think people think they have to have that entire skill set when they start in order to be a good educational leader. And I think people miss all the steps that it takes to get to that point where you're confident calling yourself an educational leader. Does that make sense? So I think I had lots of little baby steps and lots of support and encouragement along the way. And I hope that we can continue to do that for students too.
Thanks, Erin. Yeah, I think that's really important to frame the messy and circuitous journeys to where, Heather and Erin are extraordinary and very well decorated and 3M National Teaching Fellows. So they appear put together, but the hard work and the baby steps and the incremental change and the elegance of the granular is so powerful. And that's actually more powerful in the origin story because it's that messy journey that you actually don't know what the destination is when you set out on it. And it only becomes clear in retrospect, which is kind of a nice ball to throw to Angie for the next question.
Perfect timing. Thank you. I was trying to put a heart on Rachel's message. It's like, I don't know if I can do two things at once. Thank you, Heather and Erin. Those were beautiful. I really appreciate you sharing those stories. And this might tie in a little bit kind of where Erin started as well. I'm wondering if you could share, and I'll start with Heather, if you could share a little bit about the process of reflecting on yourself as an educational leader in your dossier. You might also want to talk a little bit about the reflection of yourself as a teacher, whatever component, but that whole talk about the process, talk about the dossier, talk about how you approached it and maybe what it did for you besides the wonderful outcome that you are now a 3M National Teaching Fellow.
Yeah, so this honor is absolutely wonderful, and it's led me to have amazing conversations with other educators. I've before this, but now that Erin and I are in the same cohort, it's brought me so much joy to be able to connect with her and talk to her and other 3M fellows. There's no question. That said, the process, regardless of what the outcome was, the process was 100% worth it. And I should have listened to Jessica a long time ago and not thought about whether or not I was worthy, but take the opportunity I was being given to enter into a conversation about what am I doing here? Why am I doing it? And where do I want to go? So had I to do it over again, I would have gotten out of my own way and listened. She will use that against me at some other point, and it's being recorded, but it's absolutely true. She's writing it down. So it's very difficult, I think, for anybody, because we're just really doing a lot of things trying to get what has to get done today done, or what has to get done for other people done. It's really hard to step back and take that umbrella view. And I couldn't do it actually by myself. I would just talk about things, and my thought partners and mentor would reflect back what I said. And I'd say, oh yeah, I guess these things are connected. I hadn't made those connections. And even though all I ever talk about is generativity for the last 20 years, it wasn't until the very end of the process that I came to, oh, generativity is at the core of my dossier. So why am I trying to get around it? Why don't I just say it? And so for me, it was the conversations, and then the writing, and then the conversation again, and then the writing, that has helped me make better choices around where I want to put my time and where I think impact is, and remember and connect more to the why and the purpose of, I do really want to teach this course because I know what's going to what positive impacts might come. I do want to have these individual meetings with students. I do want to attend more Better Together sessions, because that aligns with where I'm going and what I want to do. So as much as I'm deeply grateful for this honor, and it has been a wonderful experience, and I'm sure it will be ongoing, the work of putting a dossier together is one of the best professional development activities I could have engaged in.
Thank you, Heather. That was beautifully described. You know how important the process is, and I know Rachel made a sport analogy. I'm thinking of another one, and it's another coach, and he says the process is what is said, and I don't think unless a person engages in it, they understand how deep this process is, and having your thought partners that you bounce things off of, in terms of that. So really appreciate you sharing that. And I smiled a lot thinking back to my own process. And if I hadn't had the people that helped me with it and gave me that opportunity to reflect, I don't think I would be the person I am now. And one of those people, it turns out, is Erin. So Erin, love to hear a little bit more about your thoughts in terms of the dossier, the critical reflection, educational leadership. You take it wherever you want to go.
Hey, thanks, Angie. And Heather, I agree that the process really is worth it. It's hard. It's hard to do. If you think of the 3M dossier, you have educational leadership, teaching excellence, and teaching innovation. And one of the things that I love doing is course projects. And so I could easily see that fitting under teaching innovation. And I could find some things for teaching excellence. The part that I struggled with for myself initially was that educational leadership, because I had a vision of what an educational leader was. And I had that doubt that, am I actually, am I fitting this mold for educational leadership? And so you're forced to reflect on it. What's your philosophy of educational leadership? And you're trying to think about that, and it becomes really personal, right? Because you're thinking about, what do I believe? Why do I believe it? Or where did this come from? And then how am I actually living this philosophy? Like, does what I'm doing align with what I say I believe in? And I think that part took me the longest to write, but it was actually the most rewarding, because it also, I feel like it gave me a little bit more confidence in myself that this is, once you write it down and you say, okay, yeah, that I started here, but now this is where I am, and this is how I got there, because yeah, you're just articulating those. What do you believe in? How is what you're doing aligning with that? And it does align. And as I said, it does get personal, so that's a little bit challenging too. Like, it's not just, philosophies are not just this is big picture, what do I do? But it's like, why am I doing that? And where does that come from? And so to articulate that on a page was challenging for me. But once I saw it, I was like, oh, this all makes so much sense for yourself. And then I think it's sort of fuel for that fire to keep going and keep doing what you're doing. So I think the reflective piece was really, really important and helpful. Not easy, but helpful.
Thanks, Erin. And thank you both. Oh, sorry, Angie, did you have anything?
No, that's okay. You go ahead, Jessica.
Okay. Well, I'm so excited about these conversations because that process of critical reflection as an active professional development, we know in our research around effective and innovative educators is the more critical reflection folks do, and the stuff that is excavating work, right? It is looking for, what are my values, and then how does that get anchored in practice, and where's the evidence of impact? We know that increases on all sorts of flourishing metrics like job satisfaction, retention, less burnout, more immersive classrooms that are built on fundamental values like consent, compassion, care, collaboration. So we know from the research, but it is really powerful to hear it from the stories, right? That Heather did resist me writing this dossier because I was like, dig a little deeper, go a little. And we in the academy dismember ourselves going through. I was just in my alma mater where I did my PhD at Queen's a couple of weeks ago, working with the Division of Arts and Sciences. And I had this sort of return to the origin of my own dismemberment. It was a very strange experience where I had to deliver a research talk in the room where I saw job applicants and invited speakers get eviscerated in the blood sport of the department asking ungenerous questions. And so I went back to the source of my own dismemberment, and in writing dossiers and working with other folks, that's an act of remembering, of going towards wholeness. I think it's really powerful. So Erin, thank you for centering the vulnerability of that. And Heather, thank you for centering the messiness, difficulty, and even reticence to engage in that process, because it does require heart, brain, body, soul, spirit in all of that messiness. And Angie, I love that you were transported back to the creation of your own dossier, and how important that is to be in conversation with other folks, that they can see things that you can't necessarily see and be able to put those pieces together. And I wonder, the next question is moving us from individual to systems level. And one of the reasons why I really like both the 3M Student Fellowship and the 3M National Teaching Fellowship is that they call themselves fellows rather than awards. There's a lot of awards in the academy. We give each other gold stars all the time. It's often about research. It's often about looking impervious and perfect and highly accomplished, where the fellowship changes the dynamic that says you didn't win something, you join something. And you join a kind of fellowship. Think about the Lord of the Rings, right? Where you've got this sort of 9 humans from really diverse places who are on their own messy journeys, but also have to do collective sense making together. There is a kind of cohort model, and then a larger community and a community of practice. And so one of the things that I've been living into and have no answers about, and I want to invite the whole room, but Heather and then Erin, to think through this question of how do we create systems and structures where we can amplify the purpose and the excellence of all of the diverse humans within our campus communities. How do we build capacities for folks to connect to their purpose? We do that a lot with students, but also how do we do that with our colleagues? How do we do that with our staff, our faculty, our leaders in various roles? Is there a way that we can center excellence beyond traditional incentive structures of awards and create systems that foster this kind of fellowship. Yeah, I don't know what the answer is, but I really am curious, first Heather and then Erin, about, and then maybe throw some stuff in the chat or throw your hand up. How do we take a systems level approach to helping folks unlock their purpose, not just for their own individual trajectories, but also in community with one another? Sorry, it's a big question. Heather, do you want to try?
A really important question, and maybe I'll just do the engage in process instead of think I have the right answer approach to this, because I'm not sure I do. I was thinking as Erin was talking about her process, and thank you, Erin, that was such a great answer. I agree with all of that, about how the 3M dossier preparation paralleled with all the other times I have to give my bio or give my CV or apply or try and get tenure or the job or promoted, and how that personal piece that I really did resist for years, what it meant when that personal piece went in, and then I went to STELI, and this was just my experience of that conference, that we just got, over the few days, we got louder and louder and louder in being excited about each other and celebrating each other, and not you're great and you're great and you're great, but how cool is it that there are so many different ways to express educational leadership, and how cool is it that compassion was a center of all of the ways that we were thinking about higher education. And this freedom to just get really loud about it was so fun. And I will never forget that, actually, how loud we got for each other and how much I liked my voice getting hoarse, being excited about the students and all of the faculty who were at STELI and the amazing things that they were bringing to the academy. I'm a fan of academia in so many ways. But maybe on a more like, what do we do in a university? I'd really like to start asking leaders in interviews about their philosophy about caring. I don't understand why caregiving and leadership are two separate constructs, and one doesn't intersect with the other. So I think even if we started asking those questions, it would start to center, along with joy, which I'm with you on, Jessica. It's not an instead of, it's a yes and. What does caregiving look like in leadership? And in those spaces of the most precarious, is that where we should be sending the most beams of caregiving and thought? So that maybe that's just my one. I'd love to see that on an interview question in leadership, of what does caregiving look like for you as a leader, and how do you manifest that?
Ooh, I love that. I'm borrowing that. I'm writing that down. Erin, do you want to take a crack at this question about how we create the conditions necessary for folks to tap into their purpose within our university communities and within our structures and systems?
So I'll just say one of the most attractive pieces about the 3M was this idea of getting, like, being connected automatically with 9 other people. That's, I think, what convinced me to, Angie's encouragement, obviously, but convinced me to actually do it, is that promise of this cohort of people. And because I think connection is one of those things we all need. Like, we're doing teaching, research, and service. They're in these little silos sometimes, and we're flat out. And I think it's pulling people together, and that those opportunities to talk to one another that remind us of what we're doing, what's actually important in what we're doing. And I'm going to say, one of the more recent times that I was reminded of this was the micro certificate retreat. So the Maple League has a micro certificate program. And at the end of the year, when these people have been working together for the year remotely, we bring them together on one campus, one of our 4 campuses, and you're sharing through presentations, but they're sharing their projects, and then we're doing something. In this case, we got an opportunity to see a makerspace and dream and think about, okay, what would we do with a makerspace on our campus? And I keep wanting to, instead of have an award of some kind, how do we do more of that, where we're actually bringing our 4 campuses together? We're collaborating. We went out to supper and you're chatting and you're getting to know one another and creating community again. We're getting excited by each other's ideas. Like, just that, you were talking about joy earlier. I think those are the joyful parts, like where this is the fun and a good reminder of why I'm in this. Like, I want more of that. And so how do we create conditions where that's an easier thing to do, is bring people together and have these things.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you, Erin. And as you and Heather were talking, we had a couple of folks joining the conversation in the chat where Tony talks about thinking structurally through his own disciplinary lens, right? That alignment of disciplinary into other forms of leadership, management, administration, and pedagogy, about surfacing structures and systems, looking at barriers, making them visible. Once you see those structures and systems, you can't unsee them. And then you can ask that question, do they still serve us? Did they ever serve many? And how do we rewire them to center? I think you're absolutely right, Erin, that joy, that the human spirit, the connections that called us often into this work in the first place. And yet sometimes that the wonder and the joy gets stamped out of us in the academic structures. And so how do we remember? Tony suggests surfacing those systems, looking at them, asking those difficult questions. And then Andrea in the chat said time. And in fact, when I interviewed over 300 people for the first Hope Circuits book, I asked what would be the one thing that would center your flourishing. What's the one thing that would change your entire experience to go from resilience to abundance? And every single person said some form of time. We need more time. We need, the times are urgent. We must slow down, as Bayo Akomolafe says. We need to do the opposite of what we're trained to do. We need time. We need slowness. We need togetherness. We need to connect in edges and margins, in these sort of weird spaces where we get to be whole together. I think that's really powerful. I invite the group to think about or to share something that we can do to celebrate better the different kinds of purposes and the different forms of excellence within our campus communities. Does anyone have the solution? And if you do, please tell it to us now so that we can do it immediately. You can percolate on that too, right? Feel free to think about it. It's a big one. How do we celebrate better outside of our traditional reward and incentive systems that center imperviousness and armored gold stars rather than the messy journeys of emergence? Oh, Heather, yes.
So I'm thinking about this, and I'm a psychology professor, but my office is actually in the music building. So I have this very strange and lovely sub-purpose of being an audience member to performing arts students. They can't quite figure out what I'm doing there because I have zero talent, but they know that I'll come watch them perform and enjoy it and be really excited about it. And if you want to know how to celebrate, you come hang out in the building where my office is and watch these students for 10 minutes and how they show up for each other, how they sing for each other, how they break out into dance, how they're so excited about what each other is going to do. So I think for me, the question of how to celebrate has been answered by youth and students who are extraordinarily good at it, from what I can see. And that we might follow their lead and start asking them to be in charge of those celebration structures, because they're quite lovely. And it's fun to watch them play in the hallways as they go on to their next class. So not my idea. The performing arts students of Bishop's University, all credit goes to them.
If I can just follow that up, Heather, that's beautiful and such a reminder that there is celebration out there, and that if we stop inhibiting ourselves, we can allow that celebration to happen. Something I wrote down, and I don't know if it's when Erin was speaking or when it was Jessica or you, and this isn't a solution. This is just, let's remind ourselves we need more flexibility and less rigidity in what we're doing, and stop saying this is the way it's always been done around here, because we need to start doing things differently, and really allowing celebration and allowing us to enjoy moments. You know, I think we need to not always think grand scale, but just being around and having more people. And I see Erin put up her hand, so I'm going to shut off my audio.
Well, no, I'm just thinking of an example from our campus that I go back to, and Rachel Hurst, who's on the call, started this, and it's a group writing session. Like, we have a week, let's say over the reading week, we all have to do research writing. So she hosts a writing retreat, and we all get together, and then we have shared lunch. So you're quiet, you're working on your research. We have shared lunch where there's lots of laughter and talk and sharing of, the things that are going well and the things that aren't, but we're building community, and then we go back to writing. And at the end, it's a really, really simple, I think, and low cost thing that in the end you feel really good because you made progress on your research, which is hard to find the time sometimes to do the writing piece, for me anyway. But then we did it in a whole group of people where we feel, and it's people from all over the campus. So you're building community across campus. So you're seeing maybe something that's happening in your department is happening elsewhere, or this department is doing this and it's really cool. I want to bring that back to my department. So there's been lots of benefits from it, and I'll credit Rachel for starting that. And then different people sort of picked it up and kept it going. But those examples of creating community and working together, I think are really helpful, and I'd love to see more.
Amazing. Angie, do you want to take the next question? Oh, sorry, Rachel, I saw your hand up.
I just wanted to add something to what Erin said. I was on sabbatical last year, and I did a fellowship at the Stellenbosch Institute for Advanced Study, and there were two requirements. One was, of course, to do like a 45-minute seminar, but the other one was that we had to eat a catered lunch together every single day. And I found the experience of being there extremely healing. And I left with like a lightness and curiosity that, if I'm honest, I experience it in the classroom, but in terms of like outside of that, I haven't experienced since I was an undergrad student, like with colleagues. So yeah, having lunch is fabulous. Yeah.
Thanks.
And I'll also say that, that those were supported by a colleague who believed in it and didn't make us jump through hoops to get a little bit of money to pay for the lunch, and didn't ask for a major report at the end. So it makes feel like it's not worth it. It's like you trusted the process that this was effective and let us do our thing. And it really was. So
I think he even offered, like, just stepped up and said, what can I do here? And it's great.
I think these are both excellent examples. I mean, they're similar, but they're so related, and it's so wonderful to hear, because it's and I'm not sure you're supposed to say this, but it's not rocket science. We actually need more opportunity to actually connect. And then maybe we take a step back and say, why aren't we connecting? Because we know how good it feels. And it's perhaps this pace of work. This connects back to the time. Jessica heard from all her interviewees. They just needed time. And, we're in a culture that tells us go, 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 go. And I think our universities are doing that too. There's more pressure, more work. And I'm not sure we're actually valuing the downtimes of those moments to connect. And when we connect over food, we live in a culture where we like to connect over food. It does slow us down a little bit. So how could we create more moments of just connecting, and valuing those, like that when we speak to others, we value that we take a break for lunch and connect with others. I don't want to be the one who has to say how many of you work through lunch, because I'd be the first to say, oh, that's me, get a little more done. So how can we do that? Juan Carlos, I'll turn it over to you before I start the next question, if we can.
How funny is that I cannot unmute myself. But so one of the things that I have, thinking of the question of joy and all that, this is something that has been very difficult for me, and I put, I'm generally what you will think of an optimistic person, and I yell and I make noise, and I do all these things. But I do have, I'm a biologist, and I've been trained as a scientist. I've been, and that has impacted everything that I do and the way I do it, so I try to do it, in a methodical way, and including, this is what you want to hear. And now I recognize that this is how I have assimilated into the academic culture, and even because I'm an immigrant here, that's how I have assimilated to the country, so that I can function. And one of the joys of meeting colleagues like all of you here in this call is that you actually, the interaction with all of you from different disciplines and different institutions have made me stop and think, well, actually, this is fun, and I do like what I do, and this is, my research connects to what the life that I live inside and outside the university. But in the question of joy, I in inviting, in creating this session and inviting people and writing to people and getting an email together where Heather and Angie and Jessica and Erin were in the same email, it really made me smile. And following your lead, Angie, of Sunshine and Smiles, the first sentence would be, I'm smiling as I write this, because it was the place from where I was writing. I was writing to make a formal request for you to come and do this talk, but it really made me feel better. So I am working. So this is all to say, I am working in finding those spaces and verbalizing those spaces and sharing that with my colleagues. But it's taking lots of unlearning, my friends. So thank you for joining us.
Beautifully said, Juan Carlos. I really appreciate that. And I especially because it ties to the next question, if we dare to try to do a little bit of it. But I want to note that in the chat, Andrea mentioned that at Mount A on Fridays at their meal hall, which they get a discount for faculty to come. And I think we're doing that at StFX too, that she said she goes, and that there's a lot of talking, a lot more eating than what you intend to do, and feels like she's learning more there than she would have in her office. What a beautiful reminder, Andrea. Thank you for sharing it, that time spent is important. And Rachel, I think in one of your previous messages, you said you're spending more time just connecting with people outside your office, getting less work done, but enjoying work more. Can we appreciate that a little bit more to enjoy what we are doing? So maybe a teaser. We'll see if Heather and Erin can share the last little bit of time and answer this question about unlearning and relearning. Is there something that you've had to unlearn and then figure out and do differently? And I'll just, with that quick opening, pass it on to Heather.
You want to go first, Erin? No?
I'm switching things up. I was just going to quickly say, oh, now I lost my train of thought that I started laughing. Darn it, it's gone. It'll come back.
Okay, do you want me to go?
Oh, I know what it is.
Okay.
That there's just unlearning that there's no one way to do things. Like we always think this is the way to teach or this is the way to do this. And just that I have to keep unlearning that.
Yeah, I love that. So, oh my gosh, I just got really big on the screen. So for me, I think what I thought was true was that I was the only person who had ever experienced the idea that I didn't belong. And in interviews and in connecting with colleagues, I've know very few people who don't have a story that they hold very close to themselves where they were told they don't belong because they're not good enough, because they're too good, because the physical environment is not built in such a way that they can access it, because their accent is wrong, because they speak the wrong language, because they don't think in the same processes. Like we're just excellent as human beings at finding a reason for why you don't belong. And so I had to unlearn that I was alone in that, or that that was something that was just a Heather thing. And the being able to connect to that as sort of a human experience has been very transformative for me. And then what I learned when I saw that was that there were people who were calling me in to say that I belonged there and that I could choose to go and spend time there and like exist there. And I could look behind me and open the door wider and invite more people in and tell them that they belong too. So I could build on what I had been given in belonging and make a larger circle, if it were. And beyond any content I deliver, which they're going to get one way or another, no matter how I deliver, like at some point, the content, they'll get it if they want to get it, and they won't get it if they don't want to get it. But in education, if you can find a way to open the door wider and say you belong here, it just has tremendous impacts, and sort of letting go of this idea that this was just a me problem and I had to solve it, and sort of move to, oh, we could do this together. We could create belonging together. So that was my unlearning. And I do forget, and I need to be reminded, and I need people to tell me I belong, and then I need to remember to look behind and open the door wider. But that's my journey.
Beautiful response, and I wanted to add more and see if we could have more time to open it up, but we need to give Tony an opportunity to close so that we can finish within the hour. A huge thank you to Heather and Erin and Jessica for spending this time. I loved our preparation, and if I'm going to say this because it's recorded, we are getting together with wine to talk about those questions we didn't talk about here, and turn it over to Tony.
Thank you, Angie. Well, Alan, thank you. I mentioned in the introduction that these are some of the most amazing, bright, and inspiring people I know. They have not let us down. I think you see it, if you didn't already know, how sort of fantastic and insightful this wonderful group of people are. I saw lots of interesting themes emerging as you were talking about either unlearning and relearning, and celebrating and critical reflection, things like systematic change and a vision for the future, and supporting and engaging students, and challenges, but at the same time, seeing those challenges as really important to your learning, your changing, and kind of your being. Lots of connection to caring and to community, flexibility and time. I saw that coming up quite a bit as well. And then finally, we were ending with, basically talking to one another, taking that time, going to what used to be called $5 Fridays, but apparently it's now $8.50 to go for lunch. So that's all right. Just talking to one another and working together, and needing the opportunity and the time to do that. So thanks very much for all of your insights and being your wonderful selves, quite frankly. And I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to introduce you, to listen, to learn from you, and be inspired by you. And some of you have been incredibly supportive of me over the years, and I really, truly appreciate that as well personally. So that's part of my journey, is sort of having you all in those kinds of roles. So I applaud you personally and professionally. Thank you very much. And thank you, everyone who joined us today. I know some folks had to leave a little bit early for other meetings, and I hope to see you all soon at our next Better Together session. And have a great rest of your day. Safe travels. Jessica, say hi to Jeff for me, and we'll see you all very, very soon.
Bye, everybody.
If you
Thank
don't
you.
mind, you
Thanks,
can turn
everyone.
on
Thank
your
you.
cameras.
Yes, you
We'll
can.
wave goodbye to.
Bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.